Hey guys, it's Joel. Joel from Cringe Technologies. You probably don't know what Cringe Technologies is, but it's a company that I run. Small business. It's an IT business. We've been running it for about over 10 years now. Yeah, I've got a channel called Cringe Technologies on YouTube. It's about the day-to-days of what I do and how I manage a team and how I run the business. And I just thought I'll create this channel to basically document my journey and remind myself like what I did to get here. And I wanted to give you guys a realistic journey, not a thing what you see on YouTube where people glamorize a lot. There's a few channels which give you a realistic aspect of it as well. I just wanted to give you my journey to show that not every journey is the same. Get into a business. Okay, cool. So how did I start? I'm not going to give you the concept of like the early years of how I actually got into IT. I'll just round it off and say I studied MCSE, Cisco CCNA, probably about 2005 or whatnot. Those are kind of like my entry level to IT. It was a very big entry level because I had to first do my CompTIA A exam first. It was software and hardware, and then after that I did a Network Plus and then straight into Microsoft MCSE, I think that's what it's called back then, and then Cisco CCNA, and that helped me with my journey with IT and my career with IT really. So I was employed just like everyone else. You know, you start your journey. I didn't start straight into having a business. The company I worked before I started my own business was a small company as well. They used to support IT for schools, so I worked for them. I think I was there for about 4 or 5 years. There was two partners. They had 50-50 share in the company. One of the partners was more technical than the other. The other one was more customer service based and also was quite good with a software package called Integris. It's basically a MIS package. It's like a database. So schools enter in information on a database and the database holds information of student, staff, and basically able to generate reports and do audits and give you graphs. And so they were supporting schools with that software. I was working for them. They were called at the time, I can't remember. And I was with them for 5 years. And then I could see that they were kind of both having issues amongst them. 50-50 in a company, that's another thing as well. 50-50 in a company is quite risky. If you're ever going to do that, you know, do 50-50 with someone, two things are good about it. There's a risk involved with any form of business and any form of partnership you go into. And with 50-50, you have to both agree before you can make any changes within the company. And sometimes you don't necessarily agree eye to eye, and then therefore that causes a rift. It's funny, I would only go over 50-50 partnership with someone I was very, very close to, and I knew them as well as they know me, and I trust them. We're in a similar mindset, we think alike, we have the same goal, we would never do anything to hurt each other. It's like a real friendship, and that's probably the only way I would actually go and do 50-50. And I've invested in one or two other businesses. It has to be like a 60-40, or even if it's a 51-49, doesn't matter. Someone has to have the final say. So then therefore there's at least, you know, an understanding, continuity, where therefore they know who has the final say. There's not going to be any argument, or there'll be arguments, disputes, but there's nothing that person, he or she, could do about it, because if you've agreed that. When it's 50-50, it just gets a bit, especially if you don't have the relationship with that person, like a tight relationship, they both started not to see eye to eye in the same direction of where their business to go, and that caused a rift amongst them, which was the tension you could see as employees as we were working for them. You know, they were contradicting each other and saying things opposite. And also growth as well. I was there for a few years and I thought I need to kind of grow and earn more money. There wasn't much growth after that, so an opportunity came to work in another institution like full-time, because the role which I was doing at the time, which was for the 5 years, I was supporting schools. So I was basically, schools sign up to the service, and then I used to go, it's a field engineer role, and I literally went from school to school supporting their hardwares and software. And I had scheduled visits and I had my set of schools I was looking after on a weekly basis. Then I felt that the direction of the business wasn't clear and it looked like there was a rift between the two. So I started to look around and saw opportunity for a job, full-time position with more money. It was like 10 grand more. Applied for it and I got it. And ironically enough, it was actually in education. Yeah, so I left them and went to done that. And I had a good couple of years there. But a strange thing happened at the time. When I left, a couple of months after, a few schools that I used to look after on behalf of the company I was previously worked for, they reached out asking if I could support them in any form of capacity. I approached my boss at the time, the head teacher who was running the school, and I said, look, there isn't any growth at the moment. It was basically one role. and I was the one managing the network, which was fine. And it suited me regarding, everything else with family and stuff. If there's an opportunity to make more money, then I thought, why not ARCs? So the way I kind of worked it out was I could reduce my hours to the school, still make a decent amount of money with them, and then obviously support the schools which were interested in me on my days off, and then kind of 2 times my income because of that. So let's say I'm trying to kind of work out. So at the time I might have been, I think I was on 35,000 at the time. So I think what I did was I reduced my schedule by day. So I'd done 4 days a week. And then the 2 schools that were interested in my services, the day I wasn't at my employment was the days I was supporting them. So then the school will pay a yearly rate for my services, so which was like half a day. It would have been half a day a week for 39 weeks. And then obviously any emergencies or support outside of that was included as well. So it gave me the opportunity to, even though I lost a day, I lost a bit of salary, I made it back plus more with the 2 schools I was supporting at the time. So yeah, spoke to the head about it. He was fine because I think for him, he was happy with the service. He was happy with what my contribution to the school. They had continuity, everything was working, and he didn't want me to go. Obviously, he knows that there's a certain lifespan for technicians, because if you don't have any progression and you build your knowledge, you want to obviously push on and make more money and move on, which you can. In technology, you can. That's the thing. The more you know, the more skills you have, you could really push yourself and a decent living with IT or anything technology based or even engineering. It's about the knowledge, it's about what you know and what are people willing to pay you for, basically. It's a transaction. When my mum used to say, education is power, I didn't actually get the grasp that. And I think when my mum delivered it to me, I didn't put 2 and 2 together. Now I'm in a position of obviously making money and exchanging knowledge for money. I understand the concept. People pay you for what you know. The more you know, the more they pay. The more you invest in yourself. A lot of these gurus online talk about investing in yourself. They have a point, but it's about picking the specific skill to invest in, to know that you're going to get a return, and a high value skill, as they say, a high value. Those that pick a high value skill. Like, what is a high value skill? A high value skill could be anything. A high value skill could be a plumber, electrician. They're very high value skilled and they're in demands. But anyway, it's a true thing. Knowledge is power. It's a transactional process. We have a transactions. That's what we do. We trade things. So I trade my skills and people are going to pay me for the skills I have. That's it. So I do definitely encourage people to invest in themselves. That's a true thing. Back to the story. So yeah, the head teacher didn't want to let me go or change anything and still have continuity. It was only 1 day anyway, and he was fine with that. So I was able to officially start Cringe Technologies. Why the name Cringe? I used to see a lot of people cringe in front of their PCs. I'll get frustrated with their devices or whatever they were using on the computer. So that's why I called it Cringe. And another reason, it's a silly name. People remember silly names. I registered Cringe Technologies, which was quite quick. It was and you obviously buy like £100 worth of shares, register your name. Then once you do that, then in the UK, you are able to open up a bank account, a business bank account, because you need that, because back in those days, schools pay you by a check, and you need to obviously pay the check into a bank account with the name. And yeah, that's it. Cringe Technology was born with 2 schools, and they came to me because they were really happy with the service I was offering. A bit of relationship and a rapport with a lot of the schools and the customers I work with. I mean, I took responsibility as it was my school, it's my system, and I want to make sure everyone was happy. And that attention to detail, they were happy. They wanted that service back. Obviously, once I left, they didn't get that, but that's what they wanted. Yeah, so that's how it started. What that showed me as well is based on customer service. It's funny because when you start to have your business or start your business, you have to be used to doing the boring things really, really well. Consistency is the key. Customers buy into you. They buy into you as a person. You build a relationship, you build that rapport with people. Obviously, you have to be good at what you do, but again, it's people, having people skills, being able to interact, have that empathy and that attention to detail. I learned this through, it wasn't a case of like I knew this when I started. I was, just like anything else, naive of everything. When it comes to business, I was naive to taxes, VAT, everything. I didn't know anything. I just thought, okay, let me register a business and let's start. Get myself an accountant. An accountant is a big thing. That's going to be another stage. I'm going to talk to you about accountants and you understanding, what your business is doing. But yeah, customer service is a big thing. And I only kind of realized that not early on. You would think it's an obvious thing, but because, they came to me and they wanted me to look after their service and the network, and they were happy with the service, so much that they wanted to leave my old company and come directly to me, so I must have really done something well. And I realized you have to also say to yourself, find your strong points. As my mom used to say, God's given you a gift. Find what your gift is and then maximize the potential of it. For me, communication, customer service skills, that's a big thing. Ironically enough, it's funny because naively, I think I was just, oh wow, they really like me. And yes, they liked me, but they liked the service I provided. They liked how I was with them and their people. You are the product and the brand. I was the product and the brand. Even though it was Cringe as the name, it was Joel who they were interacting with him. I was a representation of Cringe. Cringe is, okay, that's a check they're paying, but I'm the brand. I'm the person they're interacting with. So I'm the representation. They were buying into me. And when you start your services, when you start your business, you are the brand. Doesn't matter what you want to call yourself, but they're buying you. They're buying into you. You are that brand. So it took me a while to kind of get that within business, or just the mindset of it. But yeah, that's how I started. So I had 3 schools, 3 customers, paying annual fee for my technical service for a year. And it's funny because it just kind of happened. It naturally happened. I wasn't going out there saying, I wasn't pitching. I left and it was fine. They came to me. So it was kind of like a natural process into from employed to self-employed. Theoretically, it could have been my side hustle, but because I wasn't proactively looking for it, it just kind of naturally came. So I had about 3 schools at the time. So then I start to kind of manage those expectations. So theoretically, I was employed by 1. I was a contractor to 3 schools. So what do you think the next process in my head would have been? The natural thing when you're running a business, when you guys want to start it, what's the worst case scenario? And what I was in was it's only one person, which is me. I'm basically offering support for these schools, and if something happens to me, then I'm unable to provide that service. There will be no continuity. I am the service, and that is the gray area. That's where you have to understand how to scale, and I learned that very, very, very quickly. Now there's different ways to scaling. Sometimes you think to yourself, okay, cool, I need to employ someone, then I'm in trouble if something happens. But then I can't afford to employ someone because it's not making enough money for me to actually provide wages. So I was naive to the fact about, how do you manage that? But I was still able to sustain that for a good, maybe 4 or 5 years. Yeah, I think for a good 4 years I was doing that solid, managing these schools the way I was managing them by myself. And boy, it's not like you could call off sick or anything. I remember being ill one time so bad. I was so ill, feverish and everything. I mean, I was in death's door. I still got up, got in the car, and I had to visit, I think, 3 schools that day. And I did, and I don't know how I made it. I took all the medication under the sun. I felt so bad. My head was pounding. I was feverish, everything. This is how ill I was. I visited the 2nd school, and I came in, signed in, walked in to school, and I went up to the server room, and I literally laid on the floor on the server room for 45 minutes. I was out. I literally was that ill. I had to stay there for 45 minutes. It's aircon in the server room. I switched the aircon off because it was freezing at the time. I was in the floor shivering because I knew that in my head I needed to get up and make this work, make this happen. I couldn't say I'm ill or whatnot. I just needed to make it work. A lot was riding on it at the time. I needed to get a bigger house. I had children. I just needed to be consistent. So yeah, it just reminds me how like your transition from employee to employer is different because it's something which is yours. There's no such thing as hours. You just do what needs to be done. There's no such thing, oh, I feel ill, I've got a sick day. You naturally get into that mindset that it just needs to get done, and it's amazing that, that's another conversation I will have with you guys about employees and employment and the mindset of things and what I learned about it, being an employee first. And I understand both sides. I understand being an employee, and I understand obviously being an employer because I'm the one who hires and get people in positions, or sometimes you have to let people go. So yeah, it's a learning transition as well on that one. But yeah, so I did that for about 4 years and consistently and well by myself. But it was getting to a stage where other schools were recommending me. When they say you can't say no in business, there's a truth in that. You don't really know where the next check's going to come, and you don't know if a customer will go as well. Now, the fortunate enough for me, schools sign SLA, like a service level agreement. So you kind of plan. Some self-employed people, they can't, because it's a case of they'll get call outs for jobs and stuff like that. It's difficult to plan when you don't have like a contract. So I'm fortunate enough where I have a contract, a service level agreement. So if they sign a 2 or 3 year deal, I know I have a 2 or 3 year deal with that specific customer. So I could plan better. So I would recommend that as well. If you could get into businesses where therefore you could have service level agreements and agreements in place, because that helps you plan. It's not the be all end all, but it does provide you some sort of okay, I've got 2 years to be in this position or 3 years to be in this position. So I was fortunate enough with the service I was jumping into, I could do that. So schools, just like anything else, if you're consistent at what you do, if you're consistent of how you deliver, and you're consistent of doing the boring things well, okay, you start to get word of mouth recommendation. And it does, people start to make recommendations. Schools talk to each other, head teachers talk to each other, business managers talk to each other, and then they'll be like, someone will complain about their IT company, and then, oh, you know what, Joe's IT company is really great, blah blah blah. Now, it sometimes takes schools or customers to take a lot to jump from one company to another. They have to really be doing something poorly, and you're basically going into, if you take over any organization, regardless of if they've experienced poor service, you're going into a situation where therefore you have to make that service better, because what they've had or what they're using is poor. So then you have to build confidence, let them trust you, to then therefore be able to implement the things that you want to implement, so you could make their experiences in whatever field, but obviously in IT, better. Now, I was at this crucial stage now, like, what am I doing? Because you can't say, I'm just going to be content with these 4 customers and I'll be fine for the rest of my life. It doesn't happen like that. Things changes, head teachers change, schools join trusts or MATs or whatever, and another head teacher will come and say, I don't like your services, or they want to use some other services. And if you want to be able to have a certain level of income, you can't really be that narrow-minded and be naive to think that these customers will stay with you for the rest of your life. It doesn't work like that. One way or another, you have to grow, because if you stand still, business and innovation will wipe the floor with you. So you have to grow. It's ironic because we as a country, we are quite high when it comes to startups with our European neighbours, but when it comes to scaling, we're quite low. Scaling the business up, because it's difficult here. There's a number of reasons why, but which we could go in that later. That could be another video. So I was in that dilemma, like, I have to keep on pushing, so I can't say no. So when I had a few inquiries about my services, you have to be good at selling your services, selling your business. You have to talk about the strengths of it, but you have to also be realistic and also a bit normalize things as well. So you give a realistic position that you are in and the school's in, or whoever the person or the customer or the business. I think when you're more honest and transparent, then people respect you more. I mean, that's always been my approach. I try and be as authentic as possible and try and be as honest, but also making sure that they are getting the best and seeing the best of the services that I want them to see. So when you're in that meeting, you're having a face-to-face meeting. I think that'd be great. Some of the meetings you have when you're trying to entice customers to come in, because what happens for me, I don't do it. I've got no marketing, I've got no sales. I don't really do that. I've been starting to do a lot more video content and social media content of what we do, because I think that's important for people to see what we're doing. But in a sense of, do I have a sales team? Do I go around and market myself? No, not really. It's based on word of mouth. Word of mouth is great, 100%. I think it's given me a natural growth as well, so it gives me time to put things in place. I'm at a different stage now where I need to put more things in place, but the growth I've had for the last, I think, 15, 20 years, I think it's been fine. So when these customers are reaching out, these schools, not like all these schools, 10 schools at the same time, maybe like 1 or 2 schools. So it's been kind of like a soul growth. So they'll reach out and they say, oh, we're interested in your services, can we meet up? And then you have to go and sell yourself. I've had meetings with schools where I thought, yeah, got it, definitely, great meeting, fantastic. I haven't heard a ticky bird, so till this day, which is crazy. And then the following day, I'll get an email saying, yeah, we would like you to support our school and we want to sign up to your services. So you just don't know. You really don't. I just think, try and give a best account of yourself when you're in the meeting, and be clear with the services you offer, and be clear of how you could help the school or help the business as well. Understand the situation they're in. So be able to say to them exactly what the experience is there. I'm very good at going in, assessing, and saying back to them, okay, well, I think you are experiencing these problems currently at the moment. Because with that, they then know that you know what you're talking about. Like for me personally, I have a short window to try and impose myself and make them feel reassured that I know what I'm doing, trying to convince them that I'm the best person to provide and to fix their problems, and to convince them also to trust me as well. And you've already got maybe like an hour or 45 meeting with them. Sometimes you have a second meeting, but a lot of it is based on recommendation. Yeah, so again, dilemma. I'm now starting to get people reaching out, communicating with me, saying, oh, we would like your services. Starting having these meetings, selling myself. And then now you get to a stage where, okay, great, I've got 2 schools want to join with you and they want to start the service in April. Great, fantastic. So I'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 schools. Wonderful. And they'll be like, okay, how do I support them? There's only one of me. That was the predicament I was in, which is a great predicament, don't get me wrong, because I had interest, I had a commitment, and now I had to provide the services that the schools were expecting. Then I was still in the dilemma. I still had a dilemma where I was still employed. Should I take the leap of faith and hand in my notice and then do the self-employed, doing Cringe Technologies full time? Or can I work with maybe getting someone, but on a part-time basis? And naively enough, because it's funny, I didn't think I could, but person I used to work with previously with my previous company before I went to the school full-time, he was a contractor at the time. So it was a contractor my old bosses used to use every now and again if we got really busy during the summer. And I had a relationship with him and we kept in contact. So something popped in my head. Oh my gosh, let's say his name was John. Let me reach out to John, because now I've got confirmation that these 2 schools want to jump on board. Now you're probably thinking, why didn't I jump ship? You know, I'm doing the whole kind of passive income thing. I've grown the passive income, as a phrase, because everyone using passive income. Right, I've grown the small business to a point where it's, you know, it's making decent money if I'm going to get someone, you know, and I'm employed. Why don't I just hand in my notice and go all in on this? To be honest, I got used to the money I was getting. If I left the employment job, I would have been making less because it wouldn't have been enough. That's why. So my aim was to grow it to such a point it could maintain my lifestyle like if I was employed and if I had the 2 or 3 schools at the time, because I had like a joint income. I can't remember the numbers, so I'm just throwing it up in the air. So let's say I had a joint income of 60,000. Now that 60,000 obviously was maintaining myself and my family. Now if I lost the employment role and then I obviously took on the 2 schools which wanted a job on, so it would be an additional, so it would have been like 5 schools, that still wouldn't have accumulated to 60,000. So I would have been a loss. So I wouldn't have been making the money that I was used to getting, which I needed to maintain, I say lifestyle, maintain how I look after my family with. Yeah, so that's the dilemma I was in. And so I thought, okay, let me reach out to John because I know he was a contractor and he might be interested in a few shifts. I remember speaking to him many moons ago that he wasn't keen on going back into full-time employment. So yeah, I gave him a call and we spoke, and just by chance he was available and I was able to pay him to support the 2 additional schools and still make a profit from doing that as well, because he was giving me his day rate and he was a contractor as well, so he's able to deal with his own VAT, his own income tax as well. So therefore I didn't have to deal with that, and it also, in the grand scheme of things, you know, that saves me money at the same time as well, because when you employ someone, taxation is definitely different, which I'll explain in another video. Yeah, it was a good touch at the time. So he covered the 2 schools that I wasn't able to visit while I consistently done my other schools at the time. And yeah, it worked until it didn't. And this is what happens when you employ someone or when you rely on people to try and grow something, when you're doing a service-based business. So yeah, cool. I'm going to leave it as that, and then I'll do another video based on what happened with John on the next video. All right, let's keep it moving. Thanks guys. Hope you find this video useful. Give it a thumbs up and a subscribe and whatnot. I wanted to really give you guys an insight on how I grow the business and also document it for me as well. I want to remember how I started and document it as well. So I thought, you know, best way of doing it, and I'm really getting used to doing videos. So yeah, if you find this information really useful, great. I'm going to be talking more about my journey to this point, and then obviously talk to you about how I am. So at this moment, my business has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 employees, and we manage about 20 to 25 schools, and we also have small businesses as well. So it's obviously grown and scaled, and obviously the revenue now is bigger, wages are bigger and whatnot. So anyway, look forward to talking to you guys about it. And yeah, all right, see you guys in the next one.